各位记者朋友，大家下午好。
Good afternoon. Welcome to the press conference. Now the floor is open to questions.
谢发言人，中国新闻社记者提问：今天上午，中国军控与裁军协会等学术机构发。
This morning, China Arms Control and Disarmament Association issued a report titled Nuclear Ambitions of Japan's Right-Wing Forces, a Serious Threat to World Peace. The report said that the expanding nuclear ambition of the Japanese right-wing forces are posing serious threats to world peace, and Sanae Takaichi should immediately clarify Japan's position, was China's comment. Upon taking office, the new Japanese government immediately exposed the nuclear ambitions of right-wing forces. Prime Minister of Japan Sanae Takaichi and other senior officials seek to revise the 3 non-nuclear principles implied to introduce nuclear submarines, talk about strengthening extended deterrence, and openly claim that Japan should have nuclear weapons. Such moves constitute a grave challenge to the international nuclear non-proliferation regime, with the NPT as a cornerstone and post-war international order have met with strong opposition. The report you mentioned reviews the intention of Japanese right-wing forces to own nuclear weapons, lists the alarming facts of Japan investing in R&D on nuclear weapons secretly, stockpiling large amounts of sensitive nuclear materials for a long time, and having the potential to develop nuclear weapons. The report conducts an in-depth analysis of the negative impacts of such moves and proposed a series of suggestions on eliminating the negative impacts, sending out a call of safeguarding world peace and opposing Japan possessing nuclear weapons. The Japanese right-wing forces' nuclear ambition presents a dangerous signal of the resurgence of militarism in Japan and poses serious threats to world peace and stability. The Japanese side should face up to the call from the international community, clarify its position on nuclear weapons at once, observe the obligations of the NPT and the 3 non-nuclear principles. The international community should stay high vigilant and carry out nuclear cooperation with Japan prudently, continue to engage in discussions on multilateral and bilateral platforms that push back such ambition and enhance oversight and verification regarding Japan, and make sure that the international law and the international nuclear non-proliferation regime remain unshaken and stop Japan from testing the bottom line and red line of the international justice.
谢谢。深圳卫视执新闻记者提问。据报道，美国白宫近日发表声明称。
It's reported that the White House issued a statement saying President Trump directed the withdrawal of the U.S. from 35 non-UN organizations and 31 UN entities that operate contrary to U.S. national interests, was China's comment. It's not the first time for the U.S. to withdraw from such entities. The significance of international organizations and multilateral agencies does not lie in representing the selfish interest of any particular country, but in upholding the common interests of all member states. It is under this rationale that the UN-centered international system has upheld global peace and stability, promoted socio-economic development, and safeguarded the equal rights and interests of all countries. What we are witnessing in the current international landscape once again proves that it's the effective operation of the multilateral system that can stop the law of the jungle from prevailing and prevent the might is right approach from dominating the international order. This is what most countries, small and less developed ones in particular, need the most now. No matter how the situation may evolve, China will stay committed to multilateralism, support the central role of the UN in international affairs, and work to build a more just and equitable global governance system.
China dailies reported that Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Zakharova made remarks on Russia's annulment of rehabilitation decisions concerning Japanese war criminals. She said that this year Russia will keep revealing details of Japanese military's war crimes. There is no statute of limitations for these atrocities, and the process of legally sanctioning those involved is still ongoing, was China's comment. We highly commend Russia's move of justice to defend the truth of history. Over the last century, Japanese militaries have kept launching aggression, committed untold crimes, and scourged humanity. After all, however, the reckoning with Japanese militarism has never been completed. Right-wing forces in Japan are trying every means to gloss over the history of aggression, denying the Nanjing massacre, the forced recruitment of comfort women, forced labor and other crimes, and advancing the revision of history textbooks to change the verdict on the history of aggression. More than one sitting Japanese leader visited the Yasukuni War Shrine, a spiritual symbol of militarism, and paid tribute to Class A war criminals. Some politicians have stirred up tension, incited public sentiment, and exploited the situation to expand military build-up. After war, the remnants of militarism have changed appearances, grown in the shadows, and even formed well-planned actions, becoming the emerging risks of peace and stability in Asia and beyond. Only by remembering history, do soul-searching, and take concrete actions to correct the wrongdoings can a country create a better future and prevent the tragedy of war from repeating itself. This year marks the 80th anniversary of the beginning of the Tokyo trials. At the International Military Tribunal for the Far East, Japanese war criminals were tried. The culprits responsible for the death of people in victim countries were held accountable, international justice upheld, and humanity's dignity protected. It's also a warning to illicit attempts to revive militarism and launch aggression again. If the Japanese right-wing forces are hell-bent on changing the course of history, all countries and people stand for peace are entitled to have another reckoning with Japan's war crimes.
谢谢发言人。总台央视记者提问：1月6号，联合国人。
CCTV. On January 6, Volker Turk, UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, published an article in The Guardian. He said that the U.S. military strikes against Venezuela in contravention of international law and basic principles of the UN Charter. He was deeply disturbed by a narrative that seeks to justify the U.S. military intervention as a responsible to human rights record. Turk said we can't afford for our rights to be instrumentalized, involved when they are convenient and vilified when they are not. On January 7th, 16 Special Procedures of Human Rights Council released a jointment condemning U.S. actions. What's your comment? China always opposes turning human rights into political issues and tools, rejects a selective approach of international law, and opposes interfering in other countries' internal affairs under the pretext of human rights issues. We firmly support Venezuela in safeguarding sovereignty, security, and rights and interests, and support all countries in choosing the path of human rights development fit for their national conditions. We will work with the world to firmly defend the authority of international law, advocate multilateralism, and uphold world peace and stability. 近日，俄罗斯、美国、欧洲司令部周三表示，已扣押了在北大西洋航行时悬挂俄罗斯国旗的委内瑞拉籍邮轮马里内拉号。俄方表示，美方的行动违反了国际海事法和联合国公约，中方对此有何评论？
美方在公海
The U.S. move of arbitrarily seizing other countries' vessels in high seas seriously violate international law. China opposes illicit and unilateral sanctions that lack basis in international law or authorization of the UN Security Council, and opposes moves of violating the purposes and principles of the UN Charter and infringing upon other countries' sovereignty and security. Next one, please.
2 questions from Reuters.
路透社据报道，太子集团创始人这一家国际诈骗集团的头目陈志已经被引渡回中国，并且受到中国当局调查。中方能否证实中方是否能够对于这一个柬埔寨籍的人员采取行动？中方是否和英美的执法部门合作？第二个问题，据报道，中国的黑客入侵了美国众议院主要委员会的国会工作人员电子邮件，中方对此有何评论？
你的第一个问
On your first question, the Chinese competent authorities will release information on this. Please stay tuned. Combating online gambling and telecom fraud is the shared responsibility of the international community. For quite some time, China has been actively working with countries including Cambodia to crack down on such crimes. And achieved notable outcomes. China stands ready to work with neighboring countries, including Cambodia, to enhance law enforcement cooperation, protect the safety of people's life and property, and keep the exchange and cooperation between regional countries in order. On your second question, on the hacking, let me stress that we have made clear our position more than once on this issue. China opposes hacking and combats it in accordance with the law. That said, we are firmly against politically motivated spread of disinformation. Next one, please.
本周，王毅外长开启了访菲之行，这是
Foreign Minister Wang Yi is visiting Africa this week, which marks the 36th consecutive year for Chinese Foreign Minister to kick off the year with a visit to Africa. The IMF published a book entitled Africa-China Linkages, Building Deeper and Broader Connections. Well-known U.S. think tanks also spoke highly of such cooperation. Can you share with us the successful experience in developing China-Africa relations? Over the past 7 decades since the start of diplomatic relations between China and African countries, the two sides have been fighting side by side for national independence, working in solidarity as the global south grows together, fighting natural disasters and epidemics, and pursuing the dream of modernization together. The two sides have always been sharing will and woe and striving for common development. Such efforts set an example of building a new type of international relations and takes the lead in building a community with a shared future for humanity. In the new era, President Xi Jinping proposed the principle of sincerity, real results, amity, and good faith, and the principle of pursuing the greater good and shared interests. He also advocates the spirits of China-Africa friendship and cooperation. This leads China-Africa relations to march forward and is the key to successful China-Africa cooperation. Both China and African countries are important members of the Global South. Stronger solidarity and cooperation not only turbocharges the modernization drive, but also provides new wisdom for tackling global challenges. Africa is a major stage for international cooperation. China stands ready to work with all sides on the basis of respecting Africa's sovereignty to make greater contribution to promoting peace, stability, and development in Africa.
下一个问题。
Next one, please.
还有其他问题吗？
Any more questions?
Thank you. Another one from Vienna.
近日，俄罗斯美国参议员格雷厄姆表示，美国总统特朗普已经批准了一项加强针对俄罗斯制裁的法案，使得美国对中印巴西等国施加影响，阻止其购买俄罗斯石油。中方对此何评论？
说中
As I just said, China always opposes illicit and unilateral sanctions. The normal economic, trade, and energy cooperation between China and Russia does not target any third party and should not be disrupted or affected.
其他问题吗？
Any more questions?
那好，今天的记者。
Then let's call it a day. Thank you for coming.